Welcome to episode 41 of Not Factory Approved, where I try and do things on my own with limited resources. Getting into all sorts of trouble, sometimes I have a success. Hope you enjoy. I relate some interesting developments in an ongoing problem that I've had. Off and on I've had a problem with the turbo boost, underboost error code P0299. This has gone on now for a number of years. It did not occur until a few months after I bought the truck when I bought a fifth wheel. The fifth wheel weighs about 6,000 pounds and the truck is quite capable of pulling it. I've pulled it many thousands of kilometers. Occasionally it will go into a turbo underboost condition, shut off the turbos through the vacuum relief sensor. Then there's very limited power. I've had a couple of interesting developments lately. They have helped me to, I think, finally eradicate this problem. We'll see in the near future. I haven't towed the trailer yet, but the truck is definitely running better. It's getting better mileage. It has about the same power, so we'll see what happens. The symptoms are, when I'm towing the trailer, if I tow for about 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours, warm, although it can do it in any weather, shut off the truck, come back within half an hour, and go back on the highway, accelerating it will give a turbo underboost error code. I've reset the error code while driving, and the truck performance returns to normal. At one point I did have a problem with the vacuum relief valve on top of the manifold. That's triggered by the computer and it controls the amount of boost that the engine gets. That did fail once. I replaced it and I didn't have that problem again. It also threw the code, of course, because it was open, I guess. It was always relieving. So this was getting quite annoying. I tried a few times to take it to a Ford dealer. Once, no problem showed up. And the second time I had erased the code a few days before taking it in, and I had towed the trailer in that period of time, so of course he found nothing. So I decided that was a bad way to go, and I would just keep living with it until something more serious happened that would help me to find what the problem was. And that did happen. One day it threw a P012B, indicates the manifold airflow. Some sites call it MAP sensor. That's the inlet pressure sensor, which is between the air cleaner and the turbo inlet. I hadn't had that one before. There is a TSB on that to replace the connector and the MAP sensor, which is supposed to solve the problem. They wanted $160 for the connector, and they wanted $180, I think I have that backwards, $180 for the connector and $160 for the sensor. I found that to be pretty ridiculous. I checked into the price of that sensor about 2 to 3 years ago, and it was $80. I was not impressed. That's a ridiculous price for a dinky little thermistor with a interface board. So I replaced that sensor. I extended the wires on the connector, which is what the TSB is all about. The wires were good, even though they looked like they had bent in awkward angles and were stressed and had broken, but that wasn't the case. I took the jackets off, resoldered them, extending the wires slightly. That is episode 34, the MAP sensor connector repair. So I had the P012B, the connector didn't fix it. I bought the sensor from a third party, which is probably made in a faraway land where they eat a lot of rice. It has no markings on it at all. I don't know how long it will last, but it was $25 versus $160. Since then, the truck has started running better. It has improved its mileage slightly. Indications are good. We'll see what happens. But one day we were towing the trailer and following a truck. He slowed down, so I let off the gas, went down a really slight little hill and touched the gas again. He started pulling ahead and it threw a code. Brought up the wrench symbol, cut the power under half, I'm sure, and we were limping along. So I stopped, looked, tried to reset the codes, didn't make any difference. When I got home, after limping home it took us 2.5 hours. It ran okay, it just had no power. There were no other indications, no temperature was rising, everything looked good. It didn't seem to be struggling other than it just had very limited power. So fortunately I had a tailwind and the land was fairly flat, so I was able to get home. I could get up to 90 kilometers an hour, but that took quite a while. Most of the time it was 70 to 80, and on a hill it would slow down to 60. One steep hill we got down to 50, but it still made it. If it had been struggling or vibrating or doing anything weird, I would have stopped. It was important to get home, so we kept going. The truck has been fine, so obviously it wasn't stressed. It just had low power. So these are the codes that it threw. P0299, which is turbo supercharger underboost. And since this is a turbocharged engine, from now on I'll just refer to supercharger. Since this is a turbocharged engine, from now on I'll just refer to turbo underboost or turbo condition. Second one was P012B, which is inlet pressure sensor performance. So that's the one that is by the air cleaner. P0234, which is turbo overboost, which is interesting. P0236, which is turbo sensor A range problem. A is the one by the air cleaner. P0299 is turbo underboost again, that repeated. And P061B, which is intermittent module torque calculation, meaning there's something wrong with an engine output. I assume that has to do with torque control for traction. Regardless, it threw all those codes. That was the first time I had that problem, so things were looking good. I had a few more things to go with this time, instead of just an intermittent P0299 that would come and go, and then the engine would run fine once I reset the code. The Ford Ecoboost uses 3 sensors to detect turbo pressure. Now these are actually airflow sensors. They're not pressure sensors, even though they're doing a pressure sensing job. They're using thermistors and a hybrid circuit inside a little plastic case. They each have their own range. So one is detecting airflow out of the air cleaner into the turbo. One is detecting airflow out of the turbo going into the throttle body. And the other one is detecting airflow in the manifold. So as air is boosted, the temperature rises. So this is a way that they use to detect the pressure, which is the temperature gradients along its path. So it's important that each sensor is within its range and it's accurate, or it's not going to run properly. And you'll be down on power, or you'll get too much boost, whatever the case may be. And in this case, it threw the wrench and went into limp mode. Not critical limp mode, just low power. So I hope you find this helpful. I replace the sensor and move on with life. We'll see the next time I tow the trailer if it repeats this problem. But I'm hopeful for the first time that this is taking care of it. Indications are good. One new MAF sensor, manifold airflow, right beside the air cleaner. Generic, no ID of any kind. I think it was $25 for that one, but guess where it's made? Got it from Rock Auto. The shipping was pathetic. U.S. Postal Service combined with Canada Postal Service. Took over a month to get it. The USPS did not give any information on the shipment until it crossed the border. And in this case, it wasn't actually Canada Post that screwed up, it was USPS. Although they do share, take over for one another, and screw up. Bad when you get both screwing up at the same time, but this was just one of them. So it's installed. The truck is running well. It's getting better gas mileage. The power is good. There's nothing like twin turbos. It just keeps on pulling. Yesterday we towed the trailer, the fifth wheel, roughly 6,000 pounds, about 600 kilometers, and this is the average fuel consumption, 22.6 liters per 100 kilometers. The wind was variable. It was mostly a tailwind, so it does make it kind of hard to tell how it compares exactly, but there were times when it was a strong crosswind and a bit of a headwind, so it did vary quite a bit. When we started, I think the truck went into learn mode, and we were getting a consistent 16 liters per 100, which is just unbelievable. And then it slowly crept up through the day. So I think it probably was running it a bit lean to start with. It had good power though all throughout. And as the wind turned to a headwind, it was probably hitting around 24 as an average for sure. But kind of hard to tell. But before, it used to get a pretty consistent 24, 26 liters per 100 pulling the trailer. So now it seems to be about 10 to 15% better, which is nothing to complain about. I'll show you the trailer. Well, here's the trailer. As I said before, it weighs roughly 6,000 pounds loaded. It might be a bit more than that. It's not tremendously streamlined at the front. It is a 2000, so it's an older one. And I use this wing as well, up above the cab of the truck. So that's good for about 2 liters, 1.5 to 2 liters.
Please consider helping out with a like, share, subscribe, or notify. Thank you.
There's been a couple of developments since I changed the sensor. Just took the truck and the trailer on a 600 click one-way trip. It did fairly well going out and no codes or anything, decent mileage and power. Coming back, we had a lot of wind, 50 clicks, which is about 30 miles an hour. It was either crosswind or headwind, and crosswind is the worst for towing. So the truck was working fairly hard, but it didn't seem to be struggling. Just the mileage was pretty poor. Got as bad as 39 liters per 100 kilometers, which is way more than I want to pay. So after a little while of this, it threw a code, P0234, which is turbo overboost. The new sensor has failed. It failed opposite to the old sensor, which failed with an underboost condition. So the message is, don't buy cheap. With all the hassles I'm having, I would say don't buy from Rock Auto. They're saying it's off the warranty in those 73 days. 32 or 33 of those were shipping. First time I've used it. There's no way I can contact them. They want me to pay shipping back for the defective part, and then they'll split the shipping for the replacement. So not really acceptable. They need a contact line. So I'm not going to deal with them again. I'm buying the sensor from Ford, and I was wrong about the price. Apparently, I was quoted 180, but guy now says it's 112. Still pretty high, but a lot better than 180. I think that will solve the problem. Please consider helping out with a like, share, subscribe, or notify. Thank you.